Welcome to this explainer. Go ahead and settle into your armchairs, maybe pour yourself a nice cup of tea, and prepare to unravel a rather terrifying chemical mystery with me. Right then, we're looking at a modern miracle drug that simply vanished, quite literally, into thin air.
You see, back in 1998, there was this life-saving HIV medicine known as ritonavir, and it was doing absolutely incredible work for tens of thousands of patients. I mean, it took what was often a certain death sentence and turned it into a manageable condition. It was a true marvel. But then suddenly, it just completely stopped functioning. Its perfectly clear capsules literally turned into a cloudy paste of microscopic needles, leaving scientists entirely baffled. The brilliant minds over at Abbott Laboratories were absolutely stumped, desperately asking one very simple yet chilling question: why now?
Okay, let's really dive into this peculiar case. The drug worked flawlessly for 2 solid years. Hundreds of consecutive batches passed every single test. But then, entirely without warning, batches in Chicago failed their dissolution tests. They simply wouldn't dissolve. The researchers peered in and found a strange new crystal inside. Desperate for a solution, the team flew out to a spotless backup factory in Italy. But, well, would you believe it? Inexplicably, within mere days, the contamination actually followed them across the Atlantic, tracking them like a medieval plague.
Section 1. Explosive Chemical Rivals, 170 Years of Grudges and Gases. Now, to truly grasp this modern medical catastrophe, we really must look back some 170 years to a delightfully bitter spat between two brilliant, but oh, terribly arrogant chemists. Justus von Liebig and Friedrich Wöhler publicly insulted each other for 2 solid years over a single chemical compound. Liebig actually published papers slamming Wöhler as a hopeless analyst. Can you imagine? They went back and forth writing these furious rebuttals until they ultimately had to agree to a highly dramatic showdown on neutral ground in Frankfurt just to settle the score once and for all. And this brilliantly illustrates the utterly bizarre truth they uncovered in Frankfurt. By Jove, both men were absolutely right. They each possessed a compound with the exact same elemental makeup. We're talking 1 silver, 1 carbon, 1 nitrogen, and 1 oxygen atom. Exactly the same ingredients. Yet, Wöhler's powder was incredibly stable, boring even, while Liebig's powder was so wonderfully volatile it would deafeningly detonate at the absolute slightest touch. What they had stumbled upon was a profound rule of nature: isomers. This proved once and for all that nature cares not just about which atoms you possess, but precisely how you arrange them. The bonds, my dear listeners, make absolutely all the difference in the world.
Section 2. The chocolate polymorphs, a delicious analogy for disaster. Right, so let's fast forward back to 1998. The Abbott researchers studied their ruined cloudy paste under a spectrometer and realized it had the exact same atoms and bonds as ritonavir, but they had just shifted slightly into a highly stable polymorph. So what exactly is a polymorph? Well, think of a lovely bar of chocolate. Its cocoa butter fat chains can stack together in multiple ways, completely changing its physical properties without altering a single ingredient. You can have form IV, which is dull, sticky, and frankly melts right in your hand, or you can have form V, which is shiny, snappy, durable, and highly desirable. It's the same chocolate, just stacked differently. Now, if your chocolate accidentally melts into that frightfully dull form 4, a skilled chocolatier can miraculously temper it back to the shiny form V. They do this using a very precise, structured dance of heating and cooling. It effectively wipes the memory of the bad crystals and locks in that lovely, snappy structure we all enjoy so much.
Section 3. The Energy Trap. Why Abbott couldn't just melt it.
So the absolutely crucial point here is, why couldn't the Abbott scientists simply melt their ruined ritonavir and reset the crystals exactly like we do with a common chocolate bar? Well, if we consider chocolate's energy landscape, it's really just a gentle, low hill. You add a little heat, give it a bit of a push, and you can easily roll the chocolate back and forth between its different forms. But consider the ritonavir landscape, my goodness. Unlike chocolate, the new ritonavir, this pesky form 2, sits in an incredibly deep energy valley. Once it falls in, the hill is simply too massive to climb back up. No amount of heating or cooling can yank it back out to the original form I. It is, for all intents and purposes, practically irreversible. Section 4. The Tin Pest Plague, a 300-year-old cathedral horror story. We know the ritonavir was impossibly stuck in form 2,
But how on earth did this inescapable form suddenly appear out of thin air and infect factories across the entire globe? Well, imagine, if you will, a freezing European cathedral some 300 years ago in the 1600s. A bitter winter strikes, and the silver tin organ pipes suddenly go completely out of tune. But worse than that, they literally start cracking and crumbling into gray dust, growing these horrible black lesions. Terrified congregants actually thought demons, or perhaps leprosy, were attacking the church. This frankly terrifying phenomenon was dubbed the tin pest.
But what was actually happening was a chemical process known as nucleation. You see, the extreme cold caused a tiny microscopic speck of stable silver tin to shift into crumbly gray tin, and this created a nucleation site, a sort of seed that drastically lowered the activation energy barrier for the rest of the metal. Essentially, it made it vastly easier for the surrounding tin to mimic this new destructive structure, spreading like an invisible disease. And by Jove, this is exactly what happened to our miracle drug at Abbott. A single, rogue, microscopic seed of Form 2 ritonavir unexpectedly appeared in Chicago. It acted just like that tin pest, drastically lowering the activation energy and rapidly converting the surrounding Form I. And here is the truly mad part. Those microscopic seed crystals became airborne. They attached themselves to the scientists' coats. So when the Chicago team desperately flew to Italy to check the backup factory, they unwittingly acted as carriers, marching the infections straight into the pristine European facility.
Section 5. A Form 2 World. Nature wins the long game.
Because ultimately, nature always wins the long game, doesn't it? Within mere weeks of that first appearance, not a single facility left on planet Earth could manufacture the original medicine without it instantly turning into the useless, insoluble Form 2. Defeated by a microscopic seed, the company had to accept a rather grim reality. They realized they simply had to figure out how to live in a Form 2 world. They abandoned Form I entirely, reverting to an older, harsher liquid formulation, all because nature had stepped in and permanently rewritten the chemical rules.
50%. Good heavens, that's a rather chilling statistic, isn't it? Over half of all known chemical compounds are polymorphic. That means this exact vanishing act, this catastrophic disappearing of a perfectly stable form, could technically happen to almost anything sitting in your medicine cabinet right this very moment.
Which leaves us pondering this rather unsettling final question by the fire today. What exactly happens when the medicine keeping you alive today simply decides to disappear tomorrow? A rather sobering thought to leave you with. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and do remember to always keep your curiosity sharp.